Hello and welcome. I'm Master Mochizuki, Hiroo Mochizuki. In 1957, I came to Europe for the first time. I brought karate to Europe. I was the first Japanese to do so, and at that time I taught Shotokan karate. Later, in 1963, I presented the Wado-Ru style. The karate master who really improved my technique was Sensei Shinji Michihara. As well, it was my father who taught me the techniques of judo, of which he was a great expert, and equally in aikido. I had the luck of learning those styles, apart from kenjutsu from kendo. Later I learned English boxing, because my father wanted to make a synthesis of diverse martial arts. This is something very difficult because it's necessary to know the distinct methods of martial arts. We tried many different things, but unfortunately this project didn't progress because there are many differences. For example, judo involves a lot of muscle development. It is totally different than karate, from English boxing, from French boxing. The kendo sable is also quite different. However, one day I discovered the secret of the samurai. The samurai, at 16 or 17 years of age, were capable of practicing all the martial arts elements. This is miraculous. I thought that something had to exist, some secret. One day I discovered the existence of a common trunk for all martial arts. It deals with the wave, the shock wave. When we develop this concept, it is like a tree. There is the trunk and then the branches. For example, if you cut the branches and try to glue them back, it is impossible to reconstruct a tree. It is necessary to have a trunk. When you manage to unite the branches to the trunk, at that moment a connection is created among each and every branch. This is the concept that I learned then. And this is the base that I teach to all my students since 1967. Now I'm going to show you what the common trunk consists of. This is a vibration. It's a wave, like that of light, sound, electricity. It always spreads along a wave that transmits the power from one point to another. For example, I do a vibration movement that comes from here and comes out the hands, like this. This vibration comes from my interior. I'm going to show it to you with a naked torso, so that you can appreciate it more easily. This vibration that I do is due only to the movement of the muscles. There is no hip movement nor anything similar. It is only the contraction of the muscle that is moved through my body until the tip of my hand. For example, for a fist strike, we generate the movement here, this time bigger, in order to get the strike. This is the vibration. The greater this wave is, the better one can see it, in this way. For example, a punch. It can be any kind of punch. It comes from vibration. The wave originates in the hip and comes out at the ends. Now I'll show you with the help of my belt. the way of the wave's movement.
Je montre avec la ceinture, mouvement de déplacement de l'onde. Voilà.
We place the belt stretched out on the floor
Ceinture.
and we fasten each end.
Je fais le mouvement
Now I do movements
ici.
to raise and lower this end of the belt.
Et quand on fait ça,
Doing this, it will be like the waves of the sea. The wave moves to the other end.
l'autre côté.
This is the wave movement.
Déplacement de l'onde. Maintenant,
Now if I raise this point less,
et là, c'est là.
you see how the amplitude of the wave is smaller,
Mais vitesse.
but the speed of the movement is greater.
Maintenant, celui-là.
Next, I'm going to grab the belt by one end and leave the other end free.
Lance.
I'm going to throw the belt.
Comme ça. Voilà. Ça,
This
c'est
is the wave movement.
déplacement de l'onde. Alors, c'est
It's like a movement of a whip.
C'est
It's the movement of the wave with one end free.
un côté libre. C'est-à-dire, pour le
Returning to our body, we have a part that goes from the legs to the shoulder.
jusqu'à ici, c'est comme
This corresponds to the first movement with the belt fastened to the ground.
bas statique, c'est-à-dire c'est bloqué
The wave arrives, controlled to the shoulder,
à l'épaule. Et pas
and from there moves freely through the arm.
libre. Donc,
It's like a baseball movement,
baseball,
like throwing a ball,
ça vient.
a lash of a whip.
Ensuite, celui-là,
If, further, we bend the leg this way,
jambe départ,
the movement becomes a fist strike.
coup de poing. Et ensuite,
If we are grabbing someone,
quelqu'un,
it will become a throw.
projection. Par exemple,
For example, I do the movement that corresponds to
correspond
this fist strike.
le coup de poing. Et
If, besides, I contract my abdomen, the movement becomes a throw.
alors, ça devient
It's a throw like those in judo.
le judo. Et soit, par exemple, maintenant,
Now I'm going to concentrate my strength here
comme ça,
and keep the leg free,
jambe libre.
without support on the floor.
À ce moment-là,
With the leg free,
c'est la coup de
the whip
poing.
movement will be
Ça vient.
in this way.
Alors, ce mouvement-là,
So that when we do this movement like this,
ça, ça vient
it becomes a
coup de
kick.
pied.
This was my Gedi kick.
Et
If I do this, it will be a Yoko Gedi.
toujours pas.
Always the same movement with the wave that arrives to the hip.
Ensuite,
And later we free the leg.
alors donc ça vient.
It becomes a strike, a atemi. If we do the same, but this time to the side and grabbing a person in this way,
Comme ceci. Alors, là ici,
the wave makes my ribs go up, lowering my hip, and it is transmitted to my leg.
à ce moment-là,
As you see, it's a throw.
muscle, ça vient
We have a muscular movement,
de lancement de l'onde et en même
a
temps,
wave movement, and as a consequence,
ça vient projection.
we get a throw.
Et maintenant, quand je fais
When I do this movement,
là,
we get this throw.
c'est la fauchage,
Or from this position, like this, we get this other throw.
fauchage, mais ça c'est
These are elements
de base
that come from this basic movement.
mouvement fauchage,
The wave comes through my back, passes through the hip,
niveau d'ange,
and is freed through the leg.
dégage, vers
The
le
result is this other kick,
ça vient,
Ushiro Gedi.
sur le guide.
If in the
Si
movement
tu fais celui-là,
you employ a bigger circular path,
plus ce circulaire,
you will get a backward circular
plus le
kick.
circulaire en arrière,
For example, like this.
ça vient,
It's the same movement.
seulement,
The only thing that changes is the work plane.
change. Donc,
The movement, basically, is this.
finalement, ce mouvement-là,
All of this that we've seen is based exclusively
c'est-à-dire,
on the launching of the wave.
alors,
If the amplitude of the wave is big,
ça viendra.
it will turn into a throw.
Et petite amplitude,
And with a lesser amplitude, we will get a fist strike or a kick.
coup de pied. Même possibilité
We also
de
have the
faire,
possibility of working with weapons, for example, with a sable.
sabre,
We can also use a bow
ou même
or something similar.
etc. C'est la même
With the
chose.
sable, the same thing occurs, just like before. We have the wave in this direction.
Cela. Voilà. Ça c'est
As you see,
lancement fait.
like this.
C'est
It is the launching of the wave.
c'est long. Donc, ce,
If we come back to the example with the belt,
c'est quand on lance.
the movement is like using a whip. Applied to the sable,
Ça vient,
this is the movement, like this.
tu lâches ici, hop, là. Alors ça c'est.
This was for the sable.
Alors, utilise
We employ the hip movement,
planche.
this way, horizontally.
Il y a
There are two methods, to throw and to turn.
et rôtir.
Like this, in this movement,
En ce moment,
I do a rocking movement.
soit dans
Or in the
même
same
direction,
direction, I launch the sable.
c'est-à-dire
Rotation here,
par là,
and we launch the sable in the same direction.
même direction. Mais l'autre
In the other movement that I have shown you,
en-
the hip is moved like this.
c'est-à-dire, c'est
It moves in the inverse direction, in the inverse movement to the movement of the sable.
mouvement de ça,
Also, in this way,
c'est là envoyé,
we can launch the wave.
l'onde également. C'est
This is
tout à
something
fait
normal.
normal parce que mouvement de l'onde,
We can launch the wave
comme si, là c'est
in this direction or in this way.
comme ça.
It is something difficult to do with the belt, but I want you to see it, like this.
Alors ça c'est
This is the launching of the wave
c'est lancement de l'onde
on the horizontal plane.
horizontal. Alors ça,
This
c'est
is
la
the
base.
base,
C'est la base de
the base of Yoseikan Budo.
Budo. Et c'est la base.
As I've said, it is the trunk, the common trunk to all the martial arts.
Même
The same occurs when we look at other sports, with a baseball throw,
ou soit,
in tennis,
tennis de, et,
and with other sports of this kind.
bat- batteur.
It's always the same
Ça,
movement.
c'est le mouvement.
The origin is the same.
Même chose. Quand on regarde
When we look at soccer,
footballeur, et quand on
at a player kicking the ball,
le ballon, en ce moment,
the movement of the body is this,
revient comme
and
ça,
later the
et
kick.
la touche. Et pourquoi?
Why?
Parce que
First, we launch the wave that is generated in the bust,
l'onde, et par le corps,
and next,
et ensuite,
it lowers to the hip,
genou.
knee, and the foot.
Alors donc c'est
The movement is this,
hier,
and later the hips and the abdomen return back.
hanche. C'est hanche surtout au niveau de ventre, parce que la puissance
It is the strength of the bust and of the abdomen that generates the wave that is transmitted to the end of the foot,
du pied,
and that is what strikes the ball.
le ballon. Alors donc,
As you see, this is the base
c'est
of the majority of the sports that require emission of power.
lancement de puissance. Voilà, cette fois-ci, je
Now I'm going to introduce my two sons,
mes deux fils qui continuent
who, as my descendants, continue with the development and the study
de techniques de samouraï
of the samurai techniques
et comme
and of their spirit.
descendants. Alors,
My oldest son,
c'est né
Michi, Michichito Mochizuki,
et
and he is
c'est la-
Kuroshi Mochizuki.
Alors, ces deux personnes,
They will now present the techniques to you.
les techniques. Pour nous,
For us,
avant
before
tout,
all else,
c'est
the first objective is
la
health.
santé du coyotement. C'est ça qui est visé, la première chose. Et ensuite,
Part of our work has a sportive form,
un peu forme de sport.
and little by little, you will be able to introduce more traditional samurai aspects.
style traditionnel de samouraï.
Now the warm-up.
Échauffement.
Our warm-up is something different from other arts.
Différent que les autres.
For example, when you do rocking with the arms, in this way, to warm up,
vous perdez
you are losing at least 15 minutes on it.
uniquement au ça. Mais nous,
Our
on fait
system is
un
different.
système, voilà, tous les deux.
Let's see, for example,
Flexion, par exemple.
the
Comme
finger
la
presses.
flexion, je fais
We bend the
le doigt.
fingers of our partner, we bend his wrist,
Fléchis le poignet.
and later the elbow.
Et fléchis le coude.
What happens here?
Comment ça se passe?
By warming up this way, we are stretching all the extensor muscles.
C'est-à-dire
The muscles are like a sponge.
comme une éponge.
When we press a sponge
Serre,
or stretch it,
alors l'eau,
the water comes out.
c'est la même
The same
chose.
happens with our blood.
Quand
When
on
we
fait
bend the
ça,
fingers, the blood goes toward the heart.
maintenant, je lâche.
Now we let go and then the blood returns. Now I'm going to bend his fingers.
Alors,
I do
si
this.
je fais ça, si je fais ça, les élèves,
The students must learn to keep the fist
comment tenir le poignet,
and place the fingers
comment, placer
and
les
to
doigts,
control this movement
comment, contrôler
without
le
causing
regard,
pain for the partner.
sans donner de douleur,
You must know when to stop the movement
pour arrêter le mouvement
and allow the flow of blood.
du sang. C'est-à-dire, le cœur, en général,
The heart pumps the blood
pousse le sang
to send it to the
pour
extremities.
envoyer,
With this exercise, the extremities of the body,
l'extrémité du corps,
the fingers,
les doigts, qui
attract
attire
the blood.
Donc,
And in this way,
travail du cœur,
we will lighten the work the heart does.
Et ensuite, voilà.
This is the movement.
Mouvement comme ça. Alors, naturellement, il y a des-
Naturally, we also have extension
il
work
y a
and of tension.
torsion, c'est
The
pareil.
tension is like coiling up and smoothing out a towel. When we coil it up, the water comes out. If we let go, the water enters. The same occurs with the muscles of the arm. When we pull and coil with this movement, the blood moves away. When we let go, the blood returns.
Donc, nous utilisons
We employ this kind of training
l'entraînement
as warm-up.
échauffement.
In this way, we gain time in
Et en
class.
même temps,
And furthermore, for the students,
beaucoup plus à l'aise,
it'll be more comfortable to work all these matters.
plusieurs matières. Voilà, maintenant,
Now, one of them will do wrist bends.
flexion du poignet. Voilà. Et voilà. Maintenant, peut-être,
Here we would have a technique against grips. For example, when we train this, we can free ourselves from a grip and then do an elbow lock on the partner. Let's see how it works.
alors,
We have the muscle of the shoulder, the biceps,
tous les muscles qui
and all the flexor muscles of the arm outstretched.
Donc,
For this person,
pour lui, c'est la
there is extension of the flexion muscles.
flexion qui est
We are warming them up.
chauffe.
Now they are both going to warm up. One will do flexion,
Un qui fait
and the other will do extension. Flexion, extension.
voilà.
Flexion, extension.
Voilà. Ça c'est le travail.
This is the pair work.
Travail de dos. Et ensuite,
Next,
on fait
we
des
can change.
changes. On va
Change.
changer. À ce moment-là, ça devient échauffement.
Now the warm-up of each one of them is balanced.
C'est là un qui fait des travail de
One of them does stretching and all the muscles of extension, and the other
fait des échauffements.
does the stretching of all the muscles of flexion.
Maintenant,
Now, links.
il y a des possibilités.
There is the possibility of doing links.
Par exemple,
For example, here I apply tension on the shoulder
le
muscles.
muscle d'épaule
This creates a tension on the front side of those muscles.
antérieur. Et ensuite,
If I now link with this movement,
si fait ça,
we are stretching the muscles of the back side of the shoulder.
derrière l'épaule. Alors, comme ça.
At
et
the
en
same
même temps,
time, with this
avec cette
position,
position-là, fait des échauffements
we can warm up all the muscles of the
sur les
back,
muscles de dos et grand fessier,
buttocks, and legs.
ischio, aussi. Et maintenant,
If we now force the partner to move a little,
un petit peu,
he'll begin to walk.
il marche.
When we walk in this position, what happens? It is the same as when we are in this position and we try to lift the leg. This is good conditioning exercise for all of this area.
Alors, tous les gens qui
All practitioners of styles with kicks
méthode de coup de pied
often have problems in this area.
de psoas.
This part hurts them. It can even lead to a break for lack of warm-up.
Le manque d'échauffement de
How should you warm up?
alors comment faire
For
dès
example,
le départ, par exemple,
if we launch this kick like this,
ici, la
this
psoas
area suffers.
à cause de
The pelvis is moved in this way,
comme ceci. Alors, donc,
and it pulls the lumbar forward.
alors c'est lombaire.
The lumbar works in this way, so that this is very dangerous. If, in exchange, we employ the forward leg, like this, there won't be any problem because the movement is this,
Et directement, alors,
like this.
alors donc,
There won't be any problems with the lumbar.
alors, quand on fait comme
When we adopt this position,
ça, la même chose, et là, jamais
it's the same as if we were like this with the leg lifted, here above. I can advance walking in this way.
en ce moment, alors,
They make the same area of the body work,
psoas qui travaille.
but avoiding the problems that we commented on concerning the lumbar.
Alors, donc,
Now they are going to repeat the exercise.
répétition. Voilà. Ça c'est
It is work for the back muscles,
le dos,
front face of the shoulder, now the back side. And at the same time, we walk backwards. Walking backwards,
obligatoire.
we obligatorily use the sciatic.
Là, il y a
When we are in this position,
alors, ça donne
we are opening up the chest.
de poitrine. Ouverture de poitrine,
In this way,
ça fait
we stretch those pectoral muscles.
muscle pectoral. Hein. C'est ce pectoral.
Like this.
Quand on tire, alors,
And later we return to contract. This is an effect of the muscles. When we pull, afterward they tend to contract. We stretch. We let go, and then the blood returns to that area.
cette partie-là. Donc, c'est une partie de
As you can see,
pratiquement comme
it's a very complete warm-up of the anterior and posterior muscles.
voilà.
This is one kind of work. Now, we can also do the warm-up of the neck muscles.
Muscle du cou. Alors,
Here we have the Sternocleidomastoid, a very important muscle. The exercise consists of making torsion, turning here so that this muscle is stretched.
à ce moment-là, ce muscle, ça tire. Alors, donc,
This side is contracted and the other side stretches.
ça tire. Alors,
To put it into practice, we can do this technique.
comme ça. Ensuite,
Later, we change sides. This is the movement.
comme ça. Voilà. En ce moment, ça fait des jets et la pression. On donne sur le
At the same time, we are training a technique.
c'est une technique. Hein, ça devient une technique. Et
If we practice it softly,
par douceur, ça vient
we can study ways of controlling our opponent.
contrôle. Voilà. Très bien. Et maintenant,
Now we move on to another point.
essayez de faire la
We're going to see the abductors. We're going to warm up the adductors and this lateral muscle of the leg.
moyen fessier. Et
We already warmed up this muscle before. Now we go with the middle muscle.
alors ça,
The work consists of side movements.
c'est bon. Ça, c'est
So, this is the important thing.
alors, quand on
When we
serre
bring the legs together,
les jambes, à ce
this is the movement.
adducteur qui travaille. Alors, donc,
Now they are going to repeat the exercise.
le bras,
The arms are held this way.
c'est le déplacement.
And now both practitioners move to the side.
Ça devient
As you see, it's also a sweep technique. Therefore, we are practicing a sweep technique of the opponent. And at the same time, we are warming up the muscles of the gluteus and the abductors. Now I change sides. Very good. Now we'll employ this lateral muscle of the leg in a more accentuated way. A lateral receding movement. Hisa geri. Hisa geri to the abdomen. When we touch the abdomen of our partner, we get a contraction of the abdominal muscles. Here we are working the obliques muscles. In general, all the muscles of the abdomen. At the same time, we are working the legs. It's very interesting training, with which one also learns to throw kicks. We're going to detain the exercise in this position, with the leg up, in order to see something very important. When we turn the body like this, completely, the hip joint provokes a block in the vertebrae. When we are very turned, this block can affect the lumbar when we try to lift the leg or the knee to kick. Lumbar problems must be avoided. The lumbar area moves in this way. By doing this, the nucleus that exists between the vertebrae will move to the sides in this way. This can lead to the crushing of the nucleus and provoke a slipped disc. Lumbar problems must be avoided. The position that we have to adapt is at 45 degrees. Instead of kicking like this, lifting the foot from the side, the movement is this, at 45 degrees, this way. Instead of kicking from the side like this correct position is this, more frontal. The correct movement is this, the same as when we turn the foot on the ground. In this way, the block of the joint is freed up. We won't have any problem to lift the leg to kick. In this way, we can avoid the problems in the lumbar area. In order to learn the correct movement from this position, we block with the arm to avoid distancing ourselves from our partner's body. If we don't hold ourselves with the arm, at launching the kick, this will occur. The gripping of the arm of the partner helps us to train the correct position and to lift the leg at 45 degrees. This is another of the advantages of this exercise. Now I change sides. The same exercise on the other side with the other leg. This is one of our ways of working. Now we're going to do turns to train throws. In this movement, we are working the area of the ribs to initiate the technique. Next, we throw the partner. Here, all the muscles of the sides, the abdominal muscles, come into play, and the legs, all working together. At the same time, we are building muscles in the pectoral area. The exercise with the partner would be like this. Now we're going to give greater amplitude of movement to increase the power. Once these areas are warmed up, we're going to apply more power. For that, will do this movement with the leg and will take advantage of the partner's weight to strengthen the gluteus and the back muscles. We also train this throwing technique like this.
Alors ça vient, voilà, technique comme ceci. Et chez nous, ça s'appelle le Shiro Yagura. Et ce mouvement-là, la baisse,
At doing this movement, we lower the head in the direction of our foot.
alors ça c'est
As you see, the spinal column is straight.
tout droit. Donc, ici,
In this way, we do Ushiro Geri,
Ushiro-geri,
avoiding turning the neck backwards.
quand on fait comme ça,
If we turn the neck at throwing the kick, the backbone will remain curved at the dorsal and cervical level.
alors,
At doing this,
quand on fait ça, après l'onde
the shock wave comes back at us.
Alors là, il y a
The spinal column moves like this,
c'est un peu comme ça.
and the shock wave returns and there's an impact.
Alors, et souvent,
This can provoke arthrosis.
à cause de ça.
To avoid this,
Pour éviter
at throwing a kick, the spinal column must remain as straight as possible in order to avoid as much as one can possible twists and other injuries.
voilà. Maintenant,
Now we'll look at the training of Ura Mawashi Geri for strengthening the leg.
alors, on peut
For this, we can do this throwing technique.
voilà. Chacun son tour.
Mai Ashi Kake.
Mai ashikake, c'est-à-dire,
We do the throw, loading forward.
alors ça c'est le muscle
This way, we warm up the back muscles of the leg,
du dos, arrière. Alors, ça vient un bon
and at the same time, we train circular kicks.
circulaire. Maintenant,
Now we're going to do the exercise to show the Ura Mawashi Geri. The kick is executed in this way.
alors ça c'est donc avec
Trained as a throw, we are strengthening the muscles,
forme la muscle et ensuite
and at the same time, it serves as training for kicks to reinforce other muscle groups.
c'est pas la même formation musculaire. Voilà, merci. Alors,
Thanks a lot.
c'est le muscle. Il y a quand on
When we use the body weight,
c'est
the muscles shorten and fatten.
et
When we stretch them, for example, with a quick movement,
rapide, à ce moment-là,
the shape of the muscle lengthens.
long. Alors, élastique. Alors,
But that elastic capacity doesn't offer us the complete functioning of the muscle.
c'est pas assez complet. Donc, il faut
We must get a strong muscle,
muscle puissant et en
and at
même
the same
temps,
time elastic.
élastique. Alors, pour ça, nous
For
allons
that,
faire
we do muscle exercises with throwing techniques,
avec forme de projection et
kicks and fist strikes. I use weapons to develop the muscles,
en musculation et ensuite
and later we exercise kicks and punches in order to lengthen the muscles and achieve elasticity.
Et maintenant,
Next, my oldest son, Michi,
Michi,
will show you Mawashi Geri,
Mawashigeri,
a form of Mawashi Geri. Because we are working contact a lot,
le contact. Donc,
that is, the throws.
projection. Et pour faire
To do throws,
quand on éloigne le corps,
if we distance the body, it will be very difficult to hold the adversary to throw him.
contact. Donc,
In order to try to close in,
à ce moment-là,
we use a Mawashi Geri kick from very close.
c'est très.
Here we already have the hand close to his arm
Donc, c'est tout
to link the fist strike and throw.
enchaîné. Et donc,
We can also link with hand locks and other techniques.
donc
For this reason, we have two different ways of doing the same kick.
coup de pied, il y a deux façons. Coup de
Kick
pied,
to maintain distance
être loin,
and kick to stay close to the adversary.
alors, pour être
To be
prêt,
close, we must lift the leg.
la jambe. Alors, là,
But
il y
if the
a-
kick is executed incorrectly, we can injure our lumbar area. Let's see the kick from the side. In this way, there is no problem in the lumbar area, given that we always stay straight. The lumbar and the back muscles remain straight. Despite doing mawashigeri, as you see, there's no problem. In the second case, a wider mawashigeri in order to maintain the distance, here a problem arises. We have extension, flexion, and torsion of the vertebrae. We'll have a problem in the lumbar area. We're going to explain it in detail. In the femoral joint, on this point, this is an example somewhat exaggerated because in reality the joint is very small. The normal position is this. When we do this movement in this direction, the hip joint is blocked in this way. When we strongly support ourselves on this blocked joint, we must necessarily stretch and curve the spinal column in the lumbar area. There lies the problem. In exchange, if we place the leg like this, in this way, there's no problem to lift the leg. It's like the kick we just saw. We throw the kick in diagonal with respect to the bust, approximately 45 degrees when we lift the leg to kick. The hip joint doesn't suffer any kind of blockage. This is very important. It is due to the opening of the hip joint. In this way, it remains closed, and in this way, it remains open. We have to avoid this blockage that can have repercussions in the lumbar. This is very important. There are diverse phases previous to the technical execution. Just as in other sports like rugby, soccer, and even tennis and handball, we compete against an adversary. We must disrupt the adversary, draw him, and then we score. This, in martial arts, is called tsukuri. Tsukuri consists of how to lead the adversary, employing distance, moving ourselves in order to exit, employing the tactic until the moment of being able to enter in the distance, and take the initiative to attack the adversary. This is about timing, which in Japanese is called kojushi. Once we manage to enter at the precise moment, the adversary will be off balance. For example, I am in this position, keeping my face and stomach protected with my hands. Now, to trick the adversary, I allow the adversary to throw a left punch. I lower my guard in this way to leave the way open for him, but keeping my other hand above in order to force him to throw the punch where I want him to. The adversary, instead of throwing his right hand, will strike me with the left. How can I act now? I must enter in the distance. In Japanese, it's called ma. For example, I'm here. I am very far from the opponent to be able to throw punches. I'm going to advance like this. Then the adversary is going to attack. If I enter, the adversary comes. Thanks to my initiative, the adversary has thrown a fist strike. And besides, it was me who has caused him to use a left punch. It isn't a right-hand strike because I have that side protected. I am letting his left strike pass. Inversely, if I do this, it will be his right hand that attacks me because with the left, he won't be able to reach me. As you see, I've done a technique to draw his left arm or his right arm. This is sukuri, the tactic. On occasions, we should do movements to trick the adversary, like this. We enter in the distance to make him come, and immediately we move to one side to trick the adversary. Once we decide the movement, we do the technique that we have explained. To make him come, we enter in the distance, and immediately we move to one side to avoid his fist strike. His strike goes long, and this happens because the adversary has fallen into my trap. At that moment, the adversary is disconcerted. He is mentally and physically off balance. He's committed an error. Mentally, he is perturbed. This unbalance is called kuzushi. It's about unbalancing your adversary. Unbalance him to be able to enter and strike him in this way. We can link with other attacks, for example this, and later a throw technique. This is called kake, the technical execution. Unfortunately, many people in martial arts only train numerous kake techniques. They train only the technical execution, but they don't study the movement previous to the technical execution. This is a very important part in martial arts, even in the competition of many other sports. For example, the soccer players work this aspect very well, also rugby players, or handball players, or even basketball players. All are sports. And thanks to them, the practitioners can understand this so important aspect of the work in the martial arts. Unfortunately, many martial arts have turned into martial theater. It is theater because when, for example, he pushes me, I immediately do a countering technique. If he attacks me from above, what do? This. It's something already foreseen, pre-established with the partner. One can always dodge and enter to do the technique, but this is unrealistic. In reality, one must consider the phase previous to the technique, for there lies the difficulty. That is what we must understand. Observe the judokas. They grab each other like this, and later they move around, pull, push, to draw the adversary, to trick him and make them enter into the technique. Then, at the right moment, they unbalance the adversary and execute the technique. Of course, they practice the technical execution a lot, but thanks also to free training, these practitioners come to do fantastic things. And this is what, unfortunately, many practitioners of martial arts pay little attention to. We try to work this aspect in our training. Next, we're going to show you the technical training. There will be techniques by turns. We'll begin with Irimi Choku Suki. We draw the left hand of the adversary and later fist strike. View from the front.
Alors donc naturellement,
We lower the guard on the right side
droite de sa tête, et pour
in order to draw the adversary's left hand.
et ensuite,
And then we enter in the distance
et pour faire venir,
and we throw the fist strike, Chokosuki.
alors ça c'est
This is a form of basic work
de base.
in order to understand how to utilize the distance, how to trick the adversary.
Adversaire. Donc tsukui,
We study the way to enter to unbalance the adversary.
pour faire déséquilibrer l'adversaire. Ensuite,
Another way of working is Tobi o Irim Kayaku Suki.
Tombow et Migakuzuki,
This is a feint on the left,
une feinte à gauche, et ensuite,
and later we exit to the right.
donc,
We draw the adversary by his left,
et ensuite, et en fait,
and later we enter on the other side. Facing the camera. First,
ouvrir,
we open the guard to draw the adversary.
voilà, c'est
We draw his left hand,
d'abord à gauche,
and I pass to the right.
à droite. Alors ça c'est une façon. Ces techniques de base,
These are
sont
basic
assez
techniques.
grossiers, mais pendant la-
But as we go along training them,
petit à petit,
we'll
ça va
personalize them,
devenir,
making them ours.
actuellement,
This is basic work, something simple.
c'est simple. Voilà, maintenant,
Good. Now, my Tobi Irimi Kuyaku Suki.
alors ça saute
It consists of jumping over the forward foot
et on fait.
in order to strike with Kayaku Suki.
Alors,
We try firstly to draw the adversary to the right,
et ensuite
and then we attack on the left.
à gauche. Donc, comme
Draw on the right, and enter by the left.
on fait à gauche. Alors, les distances
In this
aussi,
case, the distance is different from the previous examples,
quand on sautait, c'est
since we jump to strike,
important.
and furthermore, to surprise the adversary. Due to the distance, the adversary will believe that we are far and that we can't reach him with a fist. Closing the distance through a jump provokes a surprise reaction in the adversary. For this reason, it is important that we study the movement of the jump well. We must develop the muscles of the legs to be able to do this technique correctly. Now, after the Tobi o Irimi Gayaku Suki technique, we're going to do the same technique but linked with Gayaku Mawashi Suki. This is the link. How do we get to be behind the adversary? Through the movement work that, as you see, is very important. This work offers us freedom of the legs, how to use the legs in the freest way possible. The leg work is fundamental. Good. Thank you. Now we'll do throws instead of circular fist strikes. Do Gashi technique. We draw the adversary to enter, fist strike, and we link with the throw. Do Gashi. Now we try to do a sutemi type of throw. Do Gashi Sutemi. We draw the adversary to his left, we enter by the right, and then we make contact with the adversary to put the throw into effect. In this sutemi type throw, we also fall to the ground. This teaches us to utilize body weight
comment utiliser le poids de corps dans
and the correct direction to take the adversary down.
la projection. Alors, en ce moment,
In this position, we must change the body weight to one foot in order to unbalance ourselves and take the adversary down backwards.
en ce moment-là,
Only this way can we do the throw.
ça devient valable.
In this way, we will learn to take advantage of the body weight.
Et c'est une étude
It's a study of the Sutami techniques. Now, instead of doing do gashi, we do agi mawashi zuki.
Akima Mochizuki. Voilà. Maintenant,
Good. Now, instead of throwing the adversary backwards, we'll do it forwards.
vers l'avant. Alors,
We enter here, circular fist strike.
après coup,
We hook the adversary's arm and then we let ourselves fall, rolling forward.
coucher sur la
We utilize the weight of our body
poids de corps.
to unbalance the adversary and increase the power of the throw.
Voilà. Ça c'est
This is called Udegaki Sutemi. Good, thanks.
ça c'est l'utilisation
Here we've used all the oblique muscles and of the back.
de oblique et muscle de dos
This is very interesting work to develop the muscles of the body and balance.
et l'équilibre de corps. Maintenant,
Now, instead of striking with mawashi suki, we'll do it with agi mawashi suki.
Akima Mochizuki. Alors ça
This
c'est
is an ascending fist strike.
un montant au lieu de faire.
Instead of being horizontal, it is an ascending strike.
Alors, ça aussi
In this case, we must throw the arm from below.
pas dessous. Voilà, par exemple.
We can also do udegaki sutemi.
Sutemi,
Udegaki sutemi, passing the arm below. Also, we have the possibility of doing
si c'est possible, même
udegaki koshi nagi.
possibilité de faire.
In judo, it's known as ippon soyi nagi.
Donc, adversaire,
After the punch,
après le coup de poing, on retire le bras,
we grab the adversary's arm,
se fléchit
bending it
vers
and blocking it
l'adversaire,
so that later we can do the throw.
coincer le bras, voilà, coincer le bras, et ensuite, voilà, c'est entré. Et quand
If
on
we
fait
train
ça,
this,
naturellement,
later we will have the possibility of doing many kinds of throws,
par exemple,
like mai ashi kaki.
voilà,
Good. This is mai ashi kaki,
accrochage de
the hooking of the legs in front.
Alors, possibilité de développer, par exemple, le koyagura.
We can also do the technique,
Ça c'est
hooking the back leg of the adversary.
l'accrochage de jambe arrière.
This time we use the gluteus muscles
Grand fessier.
to do the technique.
Sortir, voilà.
It's like ushiro geri.
Muscle de dos.
We develop the muscles of the back.
Ça c'est
Now we use the muscles of the side.
ça qui est.
It's like when we throw a kick. We employ the muscles of the side. For example, a kick like yoko geri.
Ça c'est la formation de muscle.
With this kind of training,
Le koyagura. Voilà.
we help the development of the
Ça
muscle.
c'est un développement. Un développement. Maintenant,
Now, instead of entering behind to one side, we do it in front.
devant, c'est-à-dire, il y a
We throw a punch,
le gakui,
another to the side, and then we move to the opposite side and we strike.
et pam. C'est-à-dire,
We try to draw the adversary 2 consecutive times.
deux fois
Once on the left to enter on the right, and after we draw on the right to enter on the left.
à gauche. Alors donc, deux
We
fois
trick the adversary 2 times.
pour perturber l'adversaire. Voilà. Ça c'est une
This is a more complicated technique, but at the same time very interesting from the psychological point of view.
étude psychologique. Ensuite,
From From this concept, we can do other techniques, such as working the sutemi.
Travailler la systémie,
We enter and trap his leg.
attrape jambe, voilà.
Sutemi work.
Bon, ça c'est
It depends on the right moment.
le moment. Quand on sent
When we notice that the partner leaves an opening to grab his legs,
là c'est un petit peu trop devant, à ce moment-là, possibilité
then we do the grabbing technique to the legs and sutemi. In this case, we make him fall backwards.
au fond,
As you see, it's the same kind of work.
c'est le même travail.
We trick the adversary above, we slip the leg in behind, and we let ourselves fall in order to take him to the ground.
Maintenant, on va
Next, we're going to work against a left punch from the adversary.
faire très légèrement.
We do a block, deflecting his fist downward, arai uke, with our backhand,
Ça s'appelle Yaku.
gyaku arai uke. After, we do a jump, irimi, to the left, and we strike with mawashi suki jodan.
Attirer, bon, bon. Ensuite, ajouter
Next, we can link with agi mawashi suki.
Yaku. Ça, c'est
This is a very interesting link of fist strikes.
niveau de coup de poing. Et pour
There are different ways of working,
mouvement
doing circular fist strikes, horizontal
horizontal
and descending circular strikes.
en montant. Maintenant,
Now we can also add a knee strike, isageri. In this way, we also exercise the abdomen muscles.
les abdominaux, les psoas. Et en même temps,
This serves for the students to learn to utilize the distances and to apply the links.
et quand on commence
Once we understand this fist strike movement,
à partir de là, il y a possibilité de
then we add, for example, sase kiyotoshi.
celle que aussi.
It's done in this way.
Là, après, coup de poing.
It can be done without knee strike.
C'est possibilité de faire
The possibility exists of adding the knee strike, but it is more complicated technique.
un type d'abord, donc entre. Quand on
Let's see it without knee strike. When we enter, the adversary moves back.
coup de poing, c'est
The movement is this.
adversaire,
Now, the adversary moves forward,
à ce moment-là,
facilitating his fall.
utilise un peu comme le
We do a similar technique to a sweep, but pulling him to take him down.
et un barrage sur les jambes sur un adversaire. Maintenant, il y a
We also have the possibility of continuing the technique like this, with ude gaki koshi nagi. It's another option.
Bon.
Direct koshi nagi, and then we hook the adversary's arm to take him down, using hip technique.
Technique d'anche avec cette façon-là.
All these takedown techniques,
Donc, de patte d'anche,
hip,
et
sweep, or throw,
et tout ça
are integrated in the linked fist phase.
avec cette base de coups de poing enchaînés. Et maintenant,
Next, we're going to show you
montrer
kuri kaki sutemi. We grab the neck of the adversary
en utilisant le
and we use the back and neck muscles to throw the adversary back.
en arrière. Alors, ça c'est une façon de se tenir aussi.
This is another form of sutemi, very interesting, in order to learn to use the body
Le corps,
and body balance.
équilibre de corps. Alors, ça c'est. Voilà. Maintenant, il y a des possibilités.
Now we can also do numerous techniques
Beaucoup de techniques avec
linked with kicks.
avec coup de
Let's see the technical progression through the incorporation of kicks. For example, suri komi mai mawashi geri, and later gyaku suki. A movement like this, linking kick and punch, is very interesting,
très intéressant
and we utilize the unbalancing of the body to do a throw.
pour projeter. Par exemple,
For example, arai ashi sutemi, with this movement. Naturally, if the adversary is in the right position, the technique will work.
et ça marche. Mais des fois, quand
But sometimes when we enter with arai ashi sutemi,
on a la systémie,
the adversary can move his leg backwards in this way.
c'est la blocage.
Then the throw will no longer work.
Ah, là, ça marche plus.
However, here we can link with this other technique.
Une chose, si ça marche pas,
When something doesn't work, we must link with another movement
autre chose,
in order to defeat the opponent. We advance, and if we can't grab his foot,
et ensuite,
we attack the other leg to take him down.
il y a deux jambes. Alors ça fait. Donc, le premier,
Firstly, we try a sweep to the back leg of the adversary to take him down. When the adversary backs up to avoid the grip,
reculer.
we kick his forward leg.
Voilà.
We're going to repeat it going back to the first attack.
Pour empêcher l'entrée. Empêcher l'entrée.
Very good.
Et en ce moment-là,
At that moment, we attack his other leg.
aussi, c'est de penser toujours au
We must react quickly if the adversary withdraws his leg to neutralize our first attempt.
voilà. Il faut penser. Voilà.
At that moment, we link with the second takedown technique.
Et là,
Now we go on to another possibility. Apart from the normal throws, we can do locks.
par exemple,
For example, we enter with kick, and instead of throwing a punch,
clairement, et alors,
given that the adversary maintains his guard,
c'est ça qui est protégé.
we do this arm lock
Ça, ça vient.
to apply torsion to his shoulder.
Ça peut les illuxer.
Now shoulder lock.
Voilà. Maintenant,
Next, we can apply a wrist lock.
poignet.
Exterior torsion of his wrist, like this. This is a link of two different locks,
différents.
shoulder and wrist.
Mais adversaire aussi,
The adversary can always do a counter in this way.
chose contre. Voilà. Forcément, c'est pas
We won't always have the possibility of doing a throw
avec
through a wrist lock.
premier effet. Alors,
We can then free up the grip
et montrer s'il vous plaît
and link with another alternative.
dégagement de torsion.
We're going to repeat the wrist torsion to show you how to free yourselves.
Il faut pas
In this situation, we mustn't take the arm.
contre. S'il fait ça, il fait
If we do, we are lost.
aider,
What we can't do is oppose the action of the adversary.
aider,
We let ourselves be taken in his direction, and then
un dégagement.
we free ourselves from his grip and throw him over our shoulders. It is a counter technique facing a grip.
Une contre-prise. Et- Bien. Alors,
Another possibility for when the adversary advances to grab our leg,
attraper la jambe
we jump backward to withdraw both legs.
pour faire dégagement.
Next, we can link it
Et la technique, étranglement,
with the strangulation technique
et tout simplement
and a knee lock.
sur le genou. Alors, c'est un déplacement.
This movement can be done
Des fois,
moving both legs at the same time,
jambe en même temps, ou soit
or
reculer
moving the forward leg back first,
et ensuite
and later doing the throw.
donc c'est la
This makes up part of the movement work.
le déplacement. Des fois,
We can do the movement with both legs backwards,
soit
or only with the forward leg
pour dégager, puis
to avoid the grip.
jambe d'avant. Bien. Maintenant,
Good. Now techniques against Mai Gedi. We go back
Rohiki,
and Soto Ashikaki. We avoid the kick. The movement is this.
c'est la dégagement.
In the first place, we try to draw the adversary's kick toward our abdomen.
Et ensuite, donc, le bras.
For that, we keep the guard high
Et pour
to offer an opening to our opponent.
ouverture, niveau de ventre. Ok. Maintenant, contre
Now we're going to study what to do to defend ourselves from the technique that we just saw.
maiglement,
It is a defense technique against grip. We turn over ourselves to get the takedown.
comme du fauchage, en tombant
We fall, turning backward
pour faire
and rolling to all fours. This technique is called Mai Guruma.
Maintenant, il faut
Now we can do Ushiro Guruma, facing his Mai Geri attack.
et ensuite entrer
We enter turning our back
vers l'arrière,
backward in order to do a Sutemi. Ushiro Guruma.
voilà. Donc,
It is similar to an exterior leg hook,
extérieur,
but instead of hooking the leg,
mais au lieu de faire fauchage, entrer directement
we enter directly to trap the leg of the adversary at the height of the thigh.
sur l'adversaire
With the help of our body weight, we take the adversary down by throwing him backward. The backward rolling action is called Ushiro Guruma. Another option facing a Maigeri. After avoiding the kick, we turn backwards to hook his leg. This is called Mawari Soto Ashikaki. An important aspect is that after avoiding the kick, we mustn't forget to advance. Given that if we don't close the distance, we won't be able to throw the adversary. It is an attack to the back leg. It's called Mawari Ashikaki. This was normal Ashikaki. And to the other leg, it is Ashi Tori Mawari Ashikaki, attack to the back leg. This is the attack to the forward leg. This to the back leg. The movement is practically the same, only that the distance changes. When we are further away, we will direct the attack to the forward leg. And when we are close to the adversary, we'll attack his back leg. Attack to the back leg. It is a question of distances. Facing a Maigeri attack, we do Ashi Tori Ashikaki. Now the counter technique. We apply an elbow lock, though we can also twist his arm or do a wrist lock on the opponent. There are various possibilities. Here we stretch his arm. When we bend it, we do a lock on the wrist. This is a counter technique against a grip on the back leg. As you see, there are various methods to immobilize the adversary through locks. Stretch lock to the fingers, or lock bending the wrist. Here we put pressure on the forearm of the adversary. This is the same lock but centered on the biceps. Now we'll see the work with double Tombow. It is a very interesting section. Movements with the arms in inverse direction. With this kind of exercise, we help the development of the two hemispheres of the brain. Each arm moves in one direction, on one side an ascending movement, and on the other descending. When we cut the turns, we get combat movements. This supposes a difficulty for the opponent because one stick goes up and the other goes down. The adversary can try to block on one of the sides, but not both.
à dégager à deux.
It is very interesting work.
Intéressant comme étude. Des fois, changer de côté,
We can change sides
changer de sens.
in this way.
Voilà.
At first, these movements are difficult
Très difficile à faire.
because they require the synchronization of movements in inverse directions.
Maintenant,
Now we'll see the oblique movements.
alors ça aussi,
It can be an attack or defense movement, given that it also involves movements in inverse direction.
changer de
Change sides.
Maintenant,
Now, on one side, we do a horizontal movement, and on the other,
et l'autre,
a descending circular movement.
clair, descente, ou soit montant. Ça c'est mouvement
Horizontal movement on one side,
d'attaque horizontale.
and on the other, vertical descending movement.
Verticale descente. Bien.
On one side, it isn't a circular movement, and on the other, yes. Now, ascending movement on the left side.
C'est un exercice
This is also an interesting exercise to do in warm-up.
d'échauffement également. Ok, merci.
Thank you.
Comme était. Et exercice.
Next exercise. One stick on the left side with ascending movement, and on the other, descending.
Alors, utilise
To block the adversary's stick,
le bâton d'arrière
we employ our left stick,
avec la main gauche,
and with our right stick, we attack the adversary's wrist.
poignet. Alors, ça c'est
At the same time, we do both movements.
le deux mouvements.
We strike his stick and his wrist. We're going to study another option. We have the possibility of doing this.
Naturellement, il y a plusieurs façons.
With one stick, we strike with descending movement,
Frapper en descendant,
and with the other, ascending movement.
en montant. Donc,
We block the stick of the adversary on one side, and we attack on the other.
et maintenant,
Now we'll see the oblique movements.
oblique. Naturellement,
Here, too, we block the adversary's stick, and we counterattack at the same time.
montant.
Now horizontal movements.
Maintenant,
Now horizontal on one side and vertical on the other. Next, horizontal stick movement on one side and on the other vertical ascending. First movement horizontal, and on the other side ascending.
et la main.
Thank you.
Oui. Oui. Comment était? Alors maintenant,
Now we'll do exercises of Tombow against Tombow.
Tombow.
To execute the first strike, we jump over the forward foot, an oblique strike descending toward the exterior.
Maintenant,
Now, with this same movement, we're going to attack the adversary's legs, arai ushi, and we can also attack his body. We trick the adversary above, and we attack below. Next, we'll do a throw technique, do gashi. There are many possibilities to link techniques. Here, for example, we link with do geshi. Now ascending strike, to strike the adversary's wrist. Movement from inside toward the outside. The leg movement is important. This is the simple movement. Later we can link with a descending strike, from the exterior toward the interior. Now we can also add a hook on the outside leg, soto ashikaki. Here we can also do throws, sutemi, etc. But now we are looking at the simplest techniques. Next, the plunging strikes. We're going to show it from the front. In the first place, we must lightly deflect the adversary's stick with a wrist movement, and then jump straight toward him to strike. Plunging strike. We deflect the adversary's stick, and we strike with one movement. This is very important basic training in order to learn to enter and to deflect the adversary's stick. Now we'll see combined strikes, that is, changing hands with the stick. The initial strike is toward the outside and later toward the inside. We're going to see it from the front. The first strike is the normal one, and at the last moment we change hands to do a plunging strike opposite that of the previous one. After this strike, we can link with throw techniques. You must feel free to try all kinds of movements and techniques. Next, we're going to study the greeting ceremony. with the katana, also called daito. All the samurais began greeting the katana in this way. And why greet the daito? Because the samurai considered the sable as a living being. It isn't only material. They respected the sable. It is for this reason that all the samurai greeted the sable in this way. This is one of the meanings of the sable. Now, with the sable in its sheath, we'll see various ways of drawing it. In this regard, often many people draw only with the right hand. But it isn't like that. A very important part is done with the left hand. This is very important. It is something similar to a rocket. The left hand is used in the first stage of the drawing to throw the sword forward with its sheath. After, in a second stage, with the left thumb, we separate the koi gushi. In the third stage, we repeat the first and second in inverse direction to return the sheath to its position, and at the same time we draw with the right hand. In this way, the katana comes out straight. We accompany the movement with the sheath and withdraw it backwards in order to draw the sword. The katana and the sheath remain aligned. It is very important. Next, we do the circular movement to cut. When we execute the movement slowly, it is something like this. Sheath forward, and we cut. This is a way of drawing. It can be with the left foot forward or the right, as there are always two possibilities. To draw, we need to send power. To get this power, we have two ways of working. In these two ways, the body is served by legs in order to create power through a turn. We turn the left foot toward the outside in this way, and the bust will turn backward in this direction. At that moment, the sable comes out straight. It comes out thrown forward. For that, in order to draw, the movement is this, in inverse direction. We're going to do it with the right foot forward. The movement is the same. It will be the left foot that does the turn. This is the important thing. We open the left foot. This is a way of drawing through the rotation of the body, moving the sable in inverse direction. Now, we'll see the drawing in the same direction as the rotation of the body. Here, we'll employ the right foot. Once we draw, we turn the right foot. In this case, we turn the body to the right, and the katana is drawn toward that side as well. Both go in the same direction. The movement is this. Observe the back foot. We do the turn with the back foot. Once again, with the right foot forward. The foot turns to obtain the necessary power. Generally, this movement is done keeping the right foot back. In Yoseikan, this area of the hand is very important. At drawing, we mustn't show the adversary our intentions. In this way, the edge of the katana remains toward the left. In this way, it will remain below for an ascending cut. And this way, we will do an oblique descending cut. If we do this wrist movement, the adversary will guess immediately
c'est la
that our attack will be horizontal. If I turn the wrist like this, you can guess that the attack will be ascending due to the direction of the edge.
Alors, donc,
In order not to show our technique,
cette partie-là,
our wrist mustn't move. We do it like this, drawing,
poignet.
but without turning the wrist.
Alors,
Observe the movement of the fingers.
et là,
These fingers push here,
je pousse ici.
and the thumb does the turn.
Maintenant,
Now,
encore
if
plus
with the thumb we turn even more, the edge remains face down.
Mais, vu de
Seen from the front, there is no difference between this movement,
ça, ça,
this, or this other.
ça. Alors ça c'est
This is employed in order not to telegraph our attack to the adversary.
c'est une
It is a very important part
très important
in Yoseikan.
pour Yoseikan.
For use in Yoseikan, Iai is solitary training,
Mais toujours imagine
in which we imagine an adversary correctly situated.
correct. Et ensuite,
Next, we study the tactics, the way of attacking the adversary, how to use the distances, called ma, first the technical execution, or sukuri, and later ma. Next, we learn to take the initiative, sen.
c'est une partie
It is another very important element
vraiment
to get the adversary mentally and physically off balance,
mentalement et
and move on to the technical execution. For example, in this case,
distance
the distance is not adequate because the adversary is too far.
et pour toucher là, il faut
To reach him, we will have to take a very big step.
Alors donc mon
For my part, I must help the adversary in order to draw him.
adversaire
If I enter here, it will be easier to attack me.
pour attaquer. Donc
I show him my advance,
j'avance
and later I retreat.
en ce moment
Now, I can strike him like this.
comme ceci. Alors
This is the third series of Iai.
et deux yai.
First, enter in the distance,
En distance et sauter
get out of it,
et
and counterattack.
et voilà, on revient. Troisième
Third series of Yoseikan Iaido. Now we'll see it from the front.
Voilà.
Now we'll see the sixth series.
Le premier. Alors,
The adversary has already drawn his sable.
devinez ça. Alors donc, maintenant,
We'll study another fundamental aspect
important, c'est
that consists of how to make the adversary close in as fast as possible.
parce que,
He is in position, seigan.
alors,
If I take too much time,
l'adversaire va
the adversary can modify his position.
changer.
This is always possible.
La possibilité de changer. Alors, ça, à ce moment-là,
At that moment, I will have problems with the technique that I initially thought about.
donc,
We must draw and attack the adversary quickly.
tout de suite.
For that, first I move the left foot forward. The adversary will get closer and will launch his attack.
C'est forcément
From this position, the fastest for him will be Suki.
Donc,
I try to draw his Suki and immediately
aussitôt,
I block his attack and I enter to strike.
alors ça c'est une façon
This is one of the ways to enter,
d'entrer
of drawing and forcing a Suki attack on the part of the adversary.
de ski et comme
In this way, I'll be able to enter as close as possible for the counterattack.
possible. Alors, c'est une
This forms part of the 6th series of Yoseikan Iaido. 6th series of Yoseikan Iaido.
Maintenant,
Now,
on montre
we'll show you the 10th series.
du pommet. Ça, c'est
In this case, I do the initial attack,
attaque. Et en ce moment,
and the adversary blocks it.
dégagement. Et là,
Then I'll do a second attack movement on the adversary.
on attaque sur l'adversaire.
When I close in on him,
Fait l'adversaire,
he blocks me, and I immediately attack again.
stop. Alors, ce mouvement-là,
In this case,
c'est le
the block can be like this,
ou soit, si
or if my strike has been detained lower,
tu vas,
the movement would be this.
ça, et voilà. Alors, donc, c'est le.
We must confront the adversary that comes from this side.
Alors, il y a possibilité.
It might happen that the adversary does a dodge
Par exemple,
backward,
arrière,
and immediately I counterattack. When the adversary attacks me, we block his strike.
dégagement,
I block his attack
aussi.
like this, and I enter to strike.
Donc, c'est
We have two movements.
je suis. Et si c'est réussi à.
If we manage to reach the adversary with our first movement, it's
c'est
perfect.
bon, mais en cas
But in case we fail,
il y a le-
if the adversary reacts quickly to our first attack
et qu'à
and moves away or recedes,
ce moment-là, le
then
deuxième mouvement,
we must know that there are additional movements in reserve.
réserve. Deuxième
10th series.
je pommet.
Good. Now we'll see the 16th series. In this case, the adversary comes on the left side. At that moment in which I advance here, We draw horizontally,
horizontalement.
and we attack.
Il y a des
We
gars
block
qui
his
font
strike,
ça, et blocage,
we block his elbow in this way, and we turn to his back to do the cut. 16th Series.
Budo paumé. Vingtième.
20th Series.
Paumé.
The adversary comes on the left,
Celui-là, quand ton adversaire,
when the adversary attacks me on the left,
je suis.
if I move the right foot forward,
Donc, je ne peux pas,
now I can't do dodges because my foot impedes it.
cause de pied droit qui est bloqué, obligé,
I am forced to move in diagonal.
obliquement.
At that moment, I draw my sable.
Mon sabre. Ensuite,
The adversary has failed his first movement
développer pour mes mouvements.
and will launch a second attack.
En ce moment,
At that moment,
entre.
I turn back and enter toward him.
Et ensuite, je pousse.
I can push him to unbalance him,
Équilibré. Ensuite,
and next, finish
je finis.
with a descending cut.
Vertical. Voilà.
20th Series.
20e.